This character is a fictional creation inspired by the spirit of creative visionaries. It is not intended to represent or impersonate any real individual, living or deceased. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Creative Sparks, the podcast where we explore the worlds of imagination and storytelling. I'm Butch, and today I'm thrilled to talk about my sci fi audio series, The 888. To help me discuss it, I've invited someone who always saw storytelling as a way to inspire hope and curiosity, Walter Ellison.
Thank you, Butch. It's wonderful to be here. Science fiction, you say? I can already tell this is going to be fascinating. Tell me about the 888.
The 888 is set in a near-future society grappling with the discovery of encoded messages hidden in the crystalline structure of water. The series follows Dr. Rachel Lee, a brilliant but conflicted scientist who uncovers these messages that may connect us to an advanced alien race.
A society where water holds secrets? That's intriguing. It reminds me of the mysteries explored in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. That story also had a central character, Captain Nemo, uncovering the unknown. Tell me, how did you come up with this concept?
I wanted to blend the mysteries of quantum physics with the human drive to connect and explore. The idea of hidden messages encoded in molecules came from thinking about the vast, untapped potential of science and the universe.
Hidden messages and alien connections. It reminds me of the sense of wonder that was tried to capture in Tomorrowland. What kind of challenges does Dr. Lee face?
She's dealing with skepticism from powerful figures like Secretary Gray, who doubts her findings and has his own agenda. At the same time, she's balancing her personal struggles and the moral implications of what it means to open communication with another world.
Skepticism and discovery. It sounds like you're exploring themes of belief and progress. That reminds me of Fantasia. People were skeptical about blending classical music with animation, but it became one of the most innovative projects. How does the alien element tie into the story?
The messages lead to a breakthrough, the realization that humanity might not be alone. One of the most dramatic scenes is when Dr. Lee deciphers a transmission that proves intelligent life has been observing Earth and possibly influencing us for centuries.
That's the kind of revelation that can turn a story and a society upside down. It reminds me of the Tomorrowland Transit Authority. People didn't realize how much of the future was already influencing the present. What's the emotional core of the series?
It's about connection. The story isn't just about communicating with aliens, it's about humanity rediscovering itself. As the characters confront their fears and biases, they're forced to ask, what does it mean to evolve?
A timeless question. It makes me think of Bambi. While it's not sci-fi, at its core, it's about growth, loss, and finding one's place in the world. How do you bring this to life in audio form?
Through immersive sound design. For example, when Dr. Lee connects to an entity from another galaxy, the audio creates an otherworldly tension. There's the hum of machinery, overlapping alien frequencies, and a melody that's almost human but not quite.
That sounds magical. Audio storytelling really lets the imagination take flight. How do you balance the science with the fiction?
It's a delicate dance. I keep the science grounded enough to feel real while using fiction to explore the what-ifs. That balance allows listeners to engage emotionally and intellectually.
Let's talk more about the characters. Dr. Rachel Lee seems like such a compelling lead. Who are some of the other key players in this tale?
One of the most intriguing characters is Secretary Gray. He's a government official who becomes both an antagonist and a symbol of humanity's fear of the unknown. Then there's Jonathan Wong, Rachel's research partner. He provides a balance to her intensity, often acting as her emotional anchor.
Every great story needs that balance. Characters who challenge and support the protagonist. It reminds me of Peter Pan and the dynamic between Peter, Wendy, and Captain Hook. Does Secretary Gray have a moment where his perspective shifts?
He does. There's a pivotal scene where Gray confronts his own past, a tragic loss that fuels his mistrust of the aliens. It doesn't make him a villain in the traditional sense, but it deepens his complexity.
Complex antagonists always elevate a story. In Sleeping Beauty, Maleficent's motivations made her more than just an evil presence. She was a force of nature, much like Secretary Gray seems to be.
Exactly. And Jonathan Wong brings a different energy. While Rachel dives headfirst into the science, Jonathan keeps her grounded, often asking questions that reflect the audience's perspective.
That's a smart approach. In The Jungle Book, Baloo played a similar role, keeping Mowgli connected to the simpler joys of life while navigating a dangerous world.
That's a great comparison. Jonathan is like a scientific Baloo. He lightens the tone, but also reminds Rachel of what's at stake for humanity.
Have you drawn any inspiration from real-world science or phenomena?
Absolutely. The idea was sparked by research into the unique properties of water, its ability to carry vibrations and structure itself in intricate ways. While we've taken creative liberties, it's rooted in the notion that water is far more complex than we often realize.
Fascinating. It reminds me of the approach in Fantasia. It explored the invisible connections between sound, visuals, and emotion. Here you're doing something similar, but with sound and science.
That's a great parallel. Like in Fantasia, the sound design of the 888 plays a crucial role in shaping the listener's experience. We use tones and frequencies to create a sense of otherworldliness.
It's amazing how sound can evoke such powerful imagery. I remember the opening notes of When You Wish Upon a Star in Pinocchio. It set the tone for the entire film.
Exactly. In one scene, when Rachel finally deciphers a crucial part of the message, the audio transitions from chaotic interference to this beautiful, resonant hum. It symbolizes the moment everything clicks into place.
What's next for the 888?
We've launched the first season, but I'm already brainstorming ideas for spin-offs. There's so much potential in this universe, from exploring the alien perspective to diving deeper into the backstories of supporting characters.
A true testament to the strength of your world building. I look forward to seeing where it goes.
I'm excited to go deeper into the world building, the themes, and what it takes to bring a story like this to life.
The foundation you've built for the 888 is fascinating. World building is such an essential part of storytelling, especially for science fiction. How do you approach creating a believable future society?
For me, it starts with asking, what if? The world of the 888 isn't just futuristic for the sake of being futuristic. It's grounded in today's science and societal trends. For example, water plays a central role, not just as a scientific mystery, but as a resource that has shaped politics, economies, and relationships.
That sounds very much like the approach that was taken with Tomorrowland. It wasn't just about showing a flashy future. It was about imagining how technology could solve real-world problems and shape our lives.
Exactly. In the 888, the discovery of encoded messages in water doesn't happen in a vacuum. It creates ripples throughout society. Governments become more controlling, religious groups interpret it as divine communication, and the general public is split between fear and awe.
That's such a rich tapestry of reactions. It reminds me of how they depicted humanity's relationship with nature in Bambi. There was respect, fear, and beauty, all coexisting. How does Dr. Rachel Lee navigate these societal pressures?
Rachel is caught in the middle. On one hand, she's a scientist who believes in facts and discovery. On the other hand, she's deeply empathetic and struggles with the ethical implications of her work. She has to ask herself, am I doing this for the greater good or for personal ambition?
A protagonist with an internal struggle. Those are the characters we relate to the most. In Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Snow White's kindness and vulnerability made her compelling. Rachel seems to have a similar complexity.
Speaking of complexity, one of the challenges of the 888 was making the alien presence both fascinating and unsettling. We never see the aliens directly, but their influence is felt everywhere.
A clever choice. Sometimes what we don't see is more powerful than what we do. In Fantasia, the music and abstract visuals tell the story without spelling everything out. How do you communicate the alien presence in the 888?
Through sound design and symbolism. For example, the encoded messages in water produce frequencies that resonate with certain people differently. Some describe it as music, others hear it as whispers. The ambiguity makes the aliens more mysterious.
That's brilliant. It reminds me of how they used the sorcerer in The Sorcerer's Apprentice. His power was implied, not shown explicitly, which made him more imposing.
And like the sorcerer, the aliens in the 888 represent something larger, an idea that forces humanity to confront its own limitations.
What kind of symbolism do you weave into the story?
Water itself is symbolic. It represents life, change, and adaptability, but it's also a mirror, reflecting humanity's flaws and potential.
Let's talk about the production side. How do you ensure your vision translates into audio effectively?
Collaboration is key. I work closely with sound designers, voice actors, and writers to make sure every element serves the story. For instance, Rachel's voice actress brings a vulnerability that perfectly captures her inner turmoil.
Collaboration has always been at the heart of storytelling. In Sleeping Beauty, the animators, musicians, and writers all work together to create something timeless. What challenges have you faced in production?
Balancing exposition with action has been tricky. In audio, you can't rely on visuals to explain things, so you have to be very intentional with dialogue and sound cues.
A unique challenge indeed. In Steamboat Willie, they had to synchronize sound with visuals in a way that hadn't been done before. Innovation often requires trial and error.
Absolutely. One of my favorite moments in production was crafting the sound of the encoded messages. We layered natural water sounds with synthesized tones to create something haunting yet beautiful.
I can't wait to hear it. Sound can transport listeners to worlds beyond their imagination.
I want to delve into the themes of the 888 and what it says about humanity's future. Walter, you've always been a visionary. What role do you think stories like this play in shaping how we think about the future?
Stories are the blueprint for what's possible. When they created Tomorrowland, it wasn't just about showing flying cars. It was about inspiring people to believe in a better tomorrow. The 888 seems to do the same by challenging us to think about connection and progress.
That's exactly what I'm aiming for. One of the central questions of the 888 is, are we ready for the future we're rushing toward? The encoded messages represent knowledge beyond our comprehension, but they also reveal our vulnerabilities.
A thought-provoking premise. It reminds me of how they approached It's a Small World. Beneath the cheerful song was a message of unity, something humanity needed to hear during a turbulent time. What message does the 888 leave with its audience?
That curiosity and connection are humanity's greatest strengths. We have the potential to achieve incredible things, but only if we overcome our fears and divisions.
A timeless theme. How does Rachel's journey reflect that message?
Rachel starts as someone who sees herself as separate from society, an observer. But through her discoveries, she realizes she's part of something much bigger. Her growth mirrors humanity's journey.
Let's end with a glimpse of the future. What's next for the 888?
After the first season launches, I'm planning spin-offs. One idea is a prequel about the first discovery of the encoded messages. Another is a story from the aliens' perspective, exploring how they view humanity.
Expanding the universe, it's like what they did with Mickey Mouse, starting with short films and building toward the Mickey Mouse Club and beyond.
Exactly. The universe of the 888 has endless possibilities, and I'm excited to explore them.
I can't wait to see where it goes.
I want to focus on something just as important: how this story connects with the audience and what we, as storytellers, hope to achieve. Walt, you've always had a unique ability to understand what resonates with people. What's your secret?
Well, Butch, I've always believed in one simple idea. If you can touch a person's heart, you've done your job as a storyteller. Whether it's a mouse, a princess, or a futuristic utopia, it's about finding that emotional core.
That's so true. With the 888, I wanted to create something that feels both epic and personal. The encoded messages in water are fascinating on a scientific level, but they're also deeply emotional. They're a mirror reflecting humanity's hopes and fears.
It reminds me of creating Pinocchio. On the surface, it's a story about a wooden puppet coming to life, but at its core, it's about longing, growth, and the universal desire to be loved and accepted. Does the 888 have a moment that you think will resonate most with listeners?
There's a scene where Dr. Rachel Lee, for the first time, realizes she's hearing a message meant specifically for her. It's subtle, almost like a whisper in the water, but it carries a profound sense of connection. It's the moment where she stops being a scientist, analyzing data, and becomes a person confronting something bigger than herself.
That sounds incredibly moving. It's those quiet, personal moments that often leave the biggest impact. In Bambi, the scene where Bambi loses his mother is simple but deeply emotional. It's a turning point for the character and the audience.
Exactly. And I think that's the challenge with a story like this: balancing the grand ideas with the intimate moments that make it real.
Let's talk about the audience. Who do you see as the ideal listener for the 888?
I'd say anyone who loves science fiction and thought provoking stories. But more than that, I think the 888 is for people who enjoy exploring big questions. Who are we? Where are we going? And what might we find when we get there?
Questions like those are universal. They remind me of the conversations we hope to spark with Tomorrowland. It wasn't just about showcasing technology. It was about inspiring people to think about what kind of future they wanted to create.
That's such a great parallel. With the 888, I hope to create that same sense of wonder. And it's not just about the story itself, it's about the conversations it sparks.
Speaking of conversations, how do you plan to engage with your audience?
We're building a community around the series. There will be a dedicated website where listeners can dive deeper into the lore, learn about the science behind the story, and even share their own theories.
That's a wonderful idea. When they launched the Mickey Mouse Club, they wanted it to feel like a community, a place where kids could feel like they were part of something bigger. How do you plan to keep that sense of engagement alive?
Through interactive content, we're considering things like Q&A sessions with the cast and crew, behind-the-scenes videos, and even live listening parties for new episodes. It's about making the audience feel like they're part of the journey.
That's the magic of storytelling. It's not just about telling a story, it's about inviting people to be part of it.
One of the things I admire most about your work, Walter, is how you always balanced innovation with timelessness. How did you manage to stay ahead of the curve while still creating stories that resonated universally?
I think it's about staying curious and never being afraid to take risks. When they made Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, it was the first feature-length animated film. People called it Disney's Folly because they didn't believe it would work, but they believed in the story, and that made all the difference.
That's so inspiring. With the 888, there were moments when I wondered if the concept was too ambitious, but every time I doubted myself, I came back to the heart of the story, the characters and their journey.
And that's what will carry it through. Audiences connect with characters, not concepts. If they believe in Dr. Rachel Lee, they'll follow her anywhere.
That's the hope. And it's been incredible to see how the cast has brought these characters to life. Rachel's voice actress, in particular, has this amazing ability to convey vulnerability and strength at the same time.
A great voice can make all the difference. Take Adriana Caselotti, the voice of Snow White. Her voice had this ethereal quality that made the character unforgettable.
Absolutely. And with audio storytelling, the voice is everything. It's the bridge between the audience and the story.
Before we wrap up, let me ask you this. What do you hope the 888 will leave behind?
I hope it inspires people to look at the world and themselves a little differently. The encoded messages in water are a metaphor for the connections we often overlook. My goal is to remind people that even in the vastness of the universe, we're all connected.
A beautiful sentiment. It reminds me of the message behind It's a Small World. At its core, it's about unity and understanding, values that are just as important today as they were when they created it.
That's exactly what I'm trying to capture. And I think sci-fi is the perfect genre for that. It lets us imagine new possibilities while reflecting on who we are.
I couldn't agree more. Well, Butch, it's been an absolute pleasure talking about the 888. I can't wait to see how it resonates with audiences. And
Thank you, Walter. Your insights have been invaluable. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey. Remember, the future is what we make of it, so keep imagining and creating. Until next time.